Good afternoon. Wow, it's not the morning. Good afternoon, Husky fans. Thanks for tuning into the 16th episode of Husky Dash. This just isn't going great already. With your hosts at Nathan Mathisen and myself at 9 3/4. Today we're going to be diving into last week's game against Utah, the best dogs of the season so far, and this week's game against Stanford. As a reminder, please feel free to drop a comment or even just a hello, and we'll make sure we cover our segments as well as everything that comes up in chat. Now then, for dog snacks, for a fun, made-up statistic, the Huskies have had their lowest average fan attendance across 3 games in the history of the team. Yay, COVID. I don't know if that's a real fact. I just made that one up, Nathan. So I hope you enjoyed that. In real news, though, for the CFP top 25s, the top 4 has not changed. BYU's only moved up 1 spot to 13th, even though still being undefeated. USC dropped to 20th from their position at 18th, Oregon from 15th down to 23rd, and the Huskies have finally made it into the top 25 at a beautiful, not last position of 22nd. Across the college football world, Sarah Fuller was the first woman to play in a Power 5 football game after kicking off for Vanderbilt in the second half of their 41-0 loss against Missouri. What a first game to be a part of. For Huskies news, Levi Onwuzurike, Keith Taylor, and Elijah Molden have all accepted invites to the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. So congrats to those guys. And then heading into, I guess, what happened last week. How do I describe it? Like what a grab your seat thriller. I don't remember the word for it. It's something. It made me nervous. The whole game was anxiety inducing. I mean, the notes practically haven't changed from last week's, where I just wrote holy choice word and then defense. Because I mean, we were down 21-0 at half. Like, what do you say to that for tackling and defensive play?
Yeah, I think the defense in the first half versus the defense in the second half was kind of 2 completely different units. I mean, the first half they struggled immensely, especially against the run, which that has kind of been a trend through the first couple games. They did horrible against Oregon State. They kind of did better against Arizona, and then against Utah, it was another poor rush defense showing by this Husky defense. And they kind of flipped the switch, I guess, in the second half. Apparently, Elijah Molden was very vocal in the locker room and really got them going. And he even had a key interception that second half that kept them getting that momentum, just piling up the momentum. And that really helped them flip the switch. But something that really impressed me was Dylan Morris's composure. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman making his 3rd ever start in college football. And in the first half, let's face it, he did not look good at all. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions. I'll give him a pass on the one because it was just a Hail Mary heave at the end of the first half. But the first interception that he threw was horrible. It was right to the defender. He must just not have seen him some reason, but it was not a good interception. And he faced all the adversity right there. You're down 21-0 against this Utah team that's hungry for its first win, as the first 2 games they played got canceled and then they lost to USC. And you're down 21-0, and how does he respond? The first 3 drives coming out of the half, they go touchdown, field goal, touchdown. So now all of a sudden, with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, the Huskies are only down 21-17, which, I mean, that's a close game. You're in it the rest of the way. But the adversity doesn't stop there, because then 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Dylan Morris throws his 3rd interception. So here you are. He's like, oh boy, I just lost the game for us. I just cost it. But luckily, the Husky defense stepped up big time, 3 and out. Utah actually lost, I believe, 9 yards that drive and punted it back. So here it is. Dylan Morris has the ball in his hands, 4 minutes to go. Show us what you got. Win the game for us. And all he does is lead them on this extremely methodical drive that takes up all 4 minutes of the 4 minutes and 21 seconds. He converts 2 3rd downs, a 3rd and 10 he converted, and really just takes this Husky team and ends it with a 16-yard touchdown pass to Cade Otton. Just the composure that he had to show in order to stay in the game, stay focused throughout all the adversity he faced, that really impressed me.
No, I mean, yeah, I did say great job to the offense in my notes, but I am not counting the first half in that statement. I mean, adversity, yes, and like composure are great things, but when you have an offense that just doesn't score in an entire half, like it's really hard. Except when you count the comeback win where they go a scoreless second half for the other team, and then your offense ends up winning the game. Like that's when it's a great job. But I feel like in 99% of cases, when your offense just doesn't score in 2 quarters, you just have to say like, what are you guys doing? But Morris had like a really good day for being a freshman. He 23 for 38, I think you said, and 2 touchdown passes, 272 total passing yards for the night. And then I just have to point out Otten again, 2 games in a row after coming off of that first game where he got like almost nothing, 8 for 108, and both of those TD receptions were his. 0 fumbles or turnovers of any kind through 3 games for Otten as well. So he's having an absolutely amazing season. But I mean, I don't want to touch too much on like players because we have that key player segment coming up. But I mean, like ZTF again as well. Like he just ZTF and Otten just both keep coming up in the conversation each week about like, hey, who's doing a good job? Like, yeah, Morris is keeping well. He's doing absolutely amazing for his age and his grade level. And then Otten and ZTF are just kind of carrying the rest of the game on their shoulders with help here and there from other people. And that's pretty much how the Utah game went. That's how the Oregon State game went. And that's how I feel like the Arizona game went. And these are starting to sound a little repetitive for who we keep naming, but what happens, you know?
I mean, you gotta name the players who are impressing us, and the same guys keep coming back over and over again. ZTF will get more into him later on, but each week he seems to be improving and getting better and better. Otten had the bad first week, but since then he's looked amazing. He's looked like an NFL prospect for next year. And then touching on like the defensive back group as a whole has impressed me immensely. Yeah. I mean, it's almost lockdown against all these passers the Huskies are going up against. Very hard to get any sort of completions going, any sort of deep passes. And that's one of the reasons that the Huskies really need to shore up this run defense, as if they can do that, then the sky's the limit for them, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at what the secondary's done is they gave up only 144 passing yards in what was like a really disgusting first half with an okay second half for their offense. But I mean, throughout the Pac-12, we're still ranked first in pretty much every category, I think, in terms of passing defense. And then surprisingly ranked 4th in the Pac-12 for rush defense, which isn't terrible. I mean, you go 3-0. I guess you have to kind of rank up there, even if one faculty of your defense is a little lacking, but. I guess then just like a quick touch on before about the Utah game that some people might not know about is that, well, they might have noticed that we were missing Richard Newton, sophomore running back who led the week prior, 81 yards, 10.1 average a carry, and 2 TDs against our week 2 opponent. We were also missing our Arizona. Thank you. I almost said Oregon State. I was like, I'm just gonna say week 2 because I might get it wrong. Good job. I didn't say it. And we also were missing our senior outside linebacker, Ryan Bowman, who got, Nathan, according to you, if you have this right, and I think you are, who was replaced with a guy who then had 7 sacks, right?
Yeah, Latu was supposed to be the starting outside linebacker, and then out of nowhere comes ZTF, who's got 7 sacks on the year. Getting into something else from the Utah game, though, just looking at something that disappointed me, and he's kind of been a disappointment this whole season, I guess we could call it, and that's the kicker, Peyton Henry. He was against Utah. He was 1 for 2 on field goals. His long for the season is 26 yards. Not very impressive. He's 4 for 7 overall. He's 57% on field goals. He hasn't made anything. He's 0 for 0 from 30 to 39, so he hasn't kicked one of those. And then from 40 plus, he's 0 for 2. So no really long-range confidence there. I mean, last year he was a 90% kicker, and for some reason this year, he has not shown up at all. I'd be extremely nervous if we were to put the game in his hands from any distance. I mean, he's missed about a 27-yarder, I think it might have been. He's missed one of those. It was against Utah. He's only 4 for 5 from 20 to 29. So overall, something's wrong. He's got to talk with the special teams coach and figure that out. I don't know if it's a holding issue or what the issue is, but hopefully they can figure that out, because you need to have a kicker that can kick field goals if you want to beat top tier teams, especially, I mean, maybe against Stanford, they'll need an important kick, and hopefully he comes through, especially against Oregon, one of the top 25 team. You're going to need your kicker to make the field goals when they go out there.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, just a clarification for both Richard Newton and Ryan Bowman. I'm pretty sure those guys are both expected to play versus the Stanford game. And that leads us into segment 2 / a December 12th comment in the chat. Yes, December 12th is a day in December where we play football, I'm pretty sure. I heard starting day 1 seems so with Morris play so far. I'm not sure what that's referring to. What does that say?
Sam Heward starting day 1. Talking on that just quickly, I think it'll all depend on how college ready Sam Heward is when he gets in the practice and is able to play with the team. I mean, Dylan Morris he's played okay. He hasn't been special. He's kind of just been consistently average as a quarterback. I mean, you saw the mistakes he made against Utah. So Sam Heward, if he comes in and is this 5-star prospect like his dad did at UW or like his uncle did at UW and can command the team and do great, then yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to have him starting day 1. But it all depends on how Dylan Morris ends the season, if he ends it on a high note, and then how ready Sam Heward actually is for college football.
Yeah, Sam Hayward's I'd say a year behind. I mean, like if he had come in at the same time as the rest of these guys and like had those days in, and then I think it absolutely would have been up to like Jimmy Lake and John Donovan where they saw Heward practicing with these guys and getting those reps in and then making that decision. But he's going to be a little bit behind coming day 1 for him, and so with the way Morris is playing right now, I see no reason for Jimmy Lake or John Donovan to change that up. Yeah, no, his balls look super good, especially when I was watching him at his passing camps and all these other guys that were recruits. They're absolutely amazing balls, especially for someone his age to throw deep balls that well was pretty good. But again, I mean, it's going to be up to Jimmy Lake and John Donovan and how they feel about how he does in summer ball and spring ball and fall ball and how all that stuff works out. I can't read. That's so blurry. I'm sorry.
It's been a while since the Huskies have had this quarterback that's been just this pure consistency. I mean, Jacob Eason was supposed to be this 5-star prospect, and he was kind of a letdown. Jake Browning was this, in my opinion, a game manager type quarterback. Don't want to trash him too bad. He did great, but really, if you look at his best year, it was when he had John Ross and Dante Pettis on the outside, just going off at wide receiver. So it's been a long time since the Huskies have had this star QB, and maybe Sam Heward is that next star QB for sure.
Yeah, speaking about star players, I think, I mean, we're supposed to list like singles and whatnot, but I had to list just the running back core as a group for this because, I mean, when you think about it, across these 3 games, they've had 121 attempts across, I think it was like 14 different people who rushed, some of them receivers, most running backs. 122 attempts for 588 yards and 8 touchdowns over 3 games. Absolutely providing an insane tempo and start to games, allowing Morris to like build confidence, make a few mistakes, and still carry games on their backs like running backs should. And so I had to highlight them before we pick out like solo stars and whatnot. But really proud of the running back group this year. Through their first 3 games, they've been doing absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, the running back group, especially week 1 and 2 against Oregon State and University of Arizona, they kind of carried the team. Against Utah, I would have liked to see some more from them. Would have liked to see them kind of bail out Dylan Morris during his struggle through first half. But when they fell behind so far by the first half, it really kind of took the game away from the running backs and gave the ball to Dylan Morris. A star player that I think has met expectations and maybe even exceeded expectations, it would have to be Elijah Molden. I mean, he's the highest graded Pac-12 defensive player by PFF. He came in, so a lot of people thought he was going to opt out for sure, just save any injury, keep his draft stock. I mean, they were saying he could be a first-round pick, and all he's done is exceed expectations, and he's now looking at maybe being a top 20 pick if he keeps playing this well, because he's absolutely a lockdown corner, I believe, one of the best in college football. And something that on film you watch him, he's also not afraid to come up and make a tackle on the running back. In each of these games, I've noticed he's identified the run and he's made a play kind of at the line of scrimmage against a running back, holding the edge and stopping a big play. He gets there, makes the tackle. I mean, just does his job game in and game out.
Yeah, he's been doing absolutely. I mean, watching him on film, you always like wish safeties would be. I mean, like UW Seattle Seahawks. I mean, those safeties always run up in the box and not afraid to make tackles, and that's what you love to see. And so it's a great change of pace from watching weekend football to watching Husky games and like Seahawks games. I'm not endorsing the Seahawks. I'm not technically a Seahawks fan, but I mean, I'm just gonna leave that there. But it's great watching when they play because you get to see those physical upfront tackling safeties. And so seeing Molden be able to do that and take some of the weight as a senior to pick up tackles and take a little more pounding is absolutely amazing to see with him. He's absolutely deserving of being one of the bigger dogs of the season so far. Another person on defense that we have to point out is ZTF. The guy's had an amazing first 3 games. I mean, he's had 11 solo tackles, 2 assisted. So yeah, the brunt of his tackles are solos. I mean, he's had 7 sacks for a loss of 49 yards. He's had 1 pass deflection, 3 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery already in 3 games. I just don't know what to say. I mean, that's 3 games. That's insane. I mean, I had 1 forced fumble, I think, in my entire 4 years of playing high school football. And so seeing this guy get 3 in back-to-back college games is he's playing out of his mind. Like, he's going to do, if he keeps this up, like, I don't know, what big awards are there in college football? I hope he gets them.
Yeah, he's definitely on pace to have some of the most sacks in a season for UW in this shortened season only. I mean, imagine if he'd gotten the 11 or 12 game season that UW usually has, how many sacks he could possibly have. He's getting 2 a game. He had 3 last game. So he's definitely been amazing. And another guy on the defense has been just Edefon Ulfoshio at middle linebacker. He's kind of the heart of this team, I think. I think he's clearly the best formed tackler. I say formed tackler because, I mean, Molden's a great tackler, but not necessarily formed tackle. He goes for the classic defensive back tackle. But when Ulfoshio one-on-one versus anyone really in the Pac-12, I'd take him to take him down. Jamar Jefferson, he had a number of tackles on him, and Jefferson's been one of the best backs in the Pac-12, maybe even college football, the way he's running. But Ulofoshio's definitely come in. I mean, he was a walk-on, and this is now his 2nd year starting, basically. He started the last 5 games of last year after injuries to the middle linebackers. And when he started to play more last year, the run defense started to improve last year. And now here he is, day 1 starting. The run defense has still struggled for an unknown reason. You look at these guys, they've got Ulofoshio, they've got Josiah Bronson up front, and it's a mystery, I guess, for why they struggle in the run defense. Hopefully they'll figure it out eventually. Right now, Ulofoshio is clearly one of the best linebackers in the Pac-12. And I touched on Molden being ranked number 1 defensive Pac-12 player in PFF. The rest of the top 5, number 2 is a UCLA player, I believe it is. Number 3 is ZTF. Number 4 is Edefon Ulofoshio. And number 5 is Trent McDuffie. So the top 5 PFF for Pac-12 defensive players, 4 of the 5 are from UW. That just shows how great this Husky defense, or how many stars this Husky defense has.
Better. Yeah, that's a better statement. I agree with that one a little bit more. I was just gonna throw us back up to our rush defense in the past 3 games, but we don't have to go to that again. One more guy to touch on offense really quickly is Cade Otton. I mean, back-to-back segments we've heard his name now. He's just absolutely insane. I mean, likewise. I mean, we wish for all of these guys that we got to see them play a couple more games before making these opinions and saying these things. Because I mean, you look at SEC schools and whatnot, and they've played upwards of 8, 9, 10, 11 games already. So we're kind of doing some line drawing, that slope, that line of best fit for these guys' stats. And if they keep going the way they're going, and they maintain just these amazing performances, they and the team are going to do very, very well in the future.
And before we get into the next topic, or are you going to keep talking about Cade Otton?
No, you could touch on it.
Just touching on another offensive player, doesn't get the most love, but an offensive lineman, Jackson Kirkland, he's been great. He was a guy that some people thought might opt out. I mean, his draft stock was maybe day 2, day 3, but all he's done is played great. I mean, he's a mauler in there at left tackle, very physical player. He great in the run game, great in the pass. This is actually his first season at left tackle. I mean, he lost 20 pounds to be more agile and help protect the blind side of the quarterback. I mean, that's what he's done. The whole offensive line has done a great job at protecting Dylan Morris. He's only been sacked once all year. So the protection has been there, and the run game wouldn't be there without some of these offensive linemen really providing a push up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what I was going to say was, speaking of the future, we have a game this Saturday against Stanford. And that is in the future, in fact. I don't have any of the stats about team history because I forgot to look those up. But what I do have is that Huskies are currently favored at 10-point spread. We've covered the spread in the 8 of our last 11 games. Stanford hasn't covered any of their spreads in the last 7. We're currently 3-0. They're at 1-2. Predicted score, I don't remember exactly from what website, was 30-17 was their predicted score. And then in like context news for this game that we're about to talk about, I promise, as of November 30th, and this might have changed because that was 3 days ago, Stanford had nowhere to practice. And there were talks about bringing them up to Seattle to practice somewhere here and then some other stuff. But yeah.
Right now Stanford's up. They're actually up here in Seattle. Yesterday they actually UW allowed them to use the indoor facility, so they practiced there yesterday just because it was on short notice. But from they're trying to find high schools right now to practice at before the game, so that's what they're doing. They're practicing at all sorts of high schools across the Seattle area, I suppose.
I mean, you just need a field and some field goal posts, I feel like. So I mean, whatever you can get it. I was talking about this UW Stanford game. Oh, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay, talking about this UW Stanford game and the quarterback battle that always gets talked about is who's playing who. Dylan Morris versus Davis Mills. Surprisingly similar stats. Not a ton of passing touchdowns. 4 for Morris, 2 for Mills. I mean, like the turnovers really like adjust as well. I mean, Morris has 3 interceptions and a sack. Mills has 0 interceptions and 5 sacks on their season right now. Quarterback ratings are within 12. I don't really know how much that means. I don't think it means too much. Not when you're, I mean, Morris is at a 72 overall QB rating and Mills is at a 60.8. So neither of them are that great when you compare it to like higher caliber QBs and QBs in the NFL. But it's looking like a really similar battle for QBs. And I think it's going to start, that means at least it's going to boil a lot down to the intangibles for the quarterbacks, like composure, throwing through a sore arm, throwing through pain, stuff like that. And then a lot of it is also going to come down to running backs, receivers, and defense. And that's just the general thoughts that I had of this game, just looking at quarterbacks alone. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, this game, it's definitely, the quarterbacks both aren't like these stars or anything. They're both kind of game manager type, just taking what the defense gives, I suppose. Not the most aggressive quarterbacks, either one of them. And you mentioned game history. Last year, the Huskies lost to Stanford 13-23, and they lost because they couldn't stop the run. The Stanford starting running back, Cameron Scarlett, who's not there anymore, he had 33 carries for 151 yards and a touchdown. So it was basically just a game where Stanford would hand the ball off and give it to him. I mean, Stanford's quarterback, even in that fourth quarter, he actually got injured and the backup came in, but the backup did not record a stat, as all he did was hand the ball off and prevented the Huskies from getting the ball back and having any chance of really winning the game. So the key will be, I suppose, to stop the Stanford run game. It hasn't been as strong, I guess you could say, as in the past. I mean, just recently, last week, they had 117 rushing yards against Cal. So overall, the Stanford offense isn't too scary to look at. I think that, especially with the defense the Huskies have, they should be able to, in theory, stop them in the past, like all the games before. And it just comes down to which run defense shows up. Does the run defense against Arizona show up, which was solid? Or does the run defense against Oregon State show up, or Utah, which had its holes and the running backs were consistently getting to the second level. So that's what I think the game's going to kind of come down to, the running game.
Yeah, and back to the running game again. I mean, UW I think has set a pretty solid pattern now of not having like a single solo like power running back, but having this like nice spread amongst a bunch of them. When I was going through stats and like adding up this Excel sheet and stuff, I was looking at leading rushers, leading receivers, and stuff like that, leading tacklers. And then when I was going through rushers, I didn't want to say like everyone who's recorded a rush, like let's put their stats down on this table and like let me figure this out. So I looking at the UW thing, I was like, okay, there's 3 people in UW over 20. Like let's just say everyone over 20 we'll throw in there. Went to Stanford's, and they had one guy who's had more than 20 rushes so far this season. That was Austin Jones. He's 50 for 194. So he's like obviously their star running back. Went back to our stat side, and then I see McGrew 27 for 162. So half the rushes, only 30 yards under. Kamar Pleasant 30 for 138. Half the rushes, nearly 60 yards under. And then Richard Newton 23 for 122. So 70 yards under, but less than half the rushes. And so I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, so if defense to defense, offense to offense is anywhere near comparable. I mean, you throw in Nathaniel Pete for Stanford as well, 17 for 138. But I mean, you add these, wow, 17 for, I just looked at that. Maybe Austin Jones just has really short, like a running game. Like he's used for 3, 4 yard, 5 yard gains, because this is just now adding up in my head and his rush yards are really low.
Yeah, Nathaniel Pete, I believe, is a young running back for them. He's a sophomore for him, and they haven't used him as much, but when they have used him, he's run really well. So maybe he'll get more carries against UW now. I mean, last week he had 6 carries, I think it was, for 6 carries for 24 yards, so a good average, 4 yards a carry. But overall, the Stanford running backs, I mean, they're not the best, but they're not the worst either.
Yeah, there really hasn't been anything like comparable to like Christian McCaffrey since he left, which was when, I mean, that guy was absolutely amazing to watch play. And I don't think Stanford's found the replacement to fill that guy's shoes since he's left. And I think this will be a good buffer week for our inside linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive lineman core, and those guys in those groups to kind of like settle down, rehash like the basics and the principles, and like keeping their lanes closed, not letting gaps open up, not letting them run through the creases. Because Stanford doesn't have bad or terrible running backs, but they don't have like league leading or college football leading running backs to just like pound on our linebackers. So I'm really hoping to see some more fundamentals get worked on and just see maybe not like better play, but just at least less mistakes.
Yeah, you want to get a quick score prediction in before we run out of time?
Geez. Okay. So yeah, that one website predicted 30-17. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that big of a gap. 17, nah, I take that back. I'm saying our defense steps up a little bit. We buckle down. I think Morris figures some more things out. I'm saying like let's go 10-17. I'm seeing a 10-17 game, maybe 10-21. I'm not sure.
Huskies win.
Huskies win.
See, I am thinking there's a bit of a gap. I think Huskies win 28-10. I think the Huskies defense plays solid all around, including run D. And I think that the Husky offense finally kind of clicks and gets something going. I mean, if you look at Stanford's game against Cal kind of shot themselves in the foot a multiple of times. And Cal, when they needed to score, they would drive down the field and score a touchdown, basically. So I think that the Huskies will be able to drive on this Stanford defense. And at the end of the day, I think they'll be able to score more touchdowns, which is what you want to do. And the Husky defense steps up, and I think the Stanford quarterback, Davis Mills, makes a few mistakes, gets picked off 2 times, and that sets up the Huskies for some easy scores. And in the end, the Huskies just win it 28-10 in a relatively solid fashion.
Yeah, I'm changing my scoreline. I'm saying 22-10. I'm saying 22-10. I'm saying after that kicker stat line you gave me, I'm saying we make 3 touchdowns and a field goal, but we miss 2 extra points. 22-10, that's my scoreline. That's what we're going with. And as Nathan just said, that about brings us to the rest of the time that we have for today, or tonight, actually. We've changed from 4 to 6, so it's night, not afternoon. But once again, I'm Joseph Claypoole, and this is Nathan Mathisen. You can follow us on our different social medias that are on screen right now. We're just a small part of the Dashboards family. So if you'd like to meet the rest of the crew, check out our website, dashboards.tv, as well as our partners' website, sportspac12.com, where you can read further into segments from our weekly shows, all of the which for Husky Dash are written by Nathan. So please go give his things a read and then a like. Can you like posts on their website? Can I like your article if I read it? No? Okay. Well, come say you liked his articles on the show. Do that. Go read his stuff and then come say you liked it here. If you'd like to visit the best moments of today's episode, head over to our website where you can also find clips, quips, tips, rips, terrible jokes, and as many of the full episodes and my terrible outros as you can stand, all in one place, all for free, dashboards.tv. We'll see you next week, but for now, this is Husky Dash signing off.